Hello and good evening, everyone. My name is Ade Adepitan, and over the next 30 or so minutes, I'm going to be sharing with you my story about my journey into sport. At the end of that 30 minutes, I'm going to have a couple of clips, two clips from two really important, significant moments in my life. And also, if my technical skills hold up, I'm also going to be sharing with you some images along the way in this 30 minutes. But at the end of it, there's going to be 15 minutes for a Q&A. So please think of some questions. Hopefully, something that I say along the way in this talk might ignite something in your brain. There might be questions you've been trying to ask me. This might be the only opportunity we ever get to hang out. So a chance for you to ask me questions about sport, Paralympic sport, about TV, and just about life in general. Okay, so my name is Ade Adepitan. I am a Paralympic athlete, Paralympic medalist, a TV presenter, travel journalist, and children's book author. Some of you may remember me from a CBBC series called Exchange, which I used to do in the mid to early 2000s. And also later on in the 2000s, a CBBC drama series called Desperados. I know a lot of people remember that drama. And I've also competed at two Paralympics as well. And I work as a travel journalist. I've recently made a TV series called Climate Change Addy on the Front Line. Now, it's really, I think it's really interesting when, when I talk about my successes, and when you talk and you meet or hear someone who's had many accolades and won many medals and stuff, because people tend to talk about those moments, the successful moments. But for me, I think what's really important, actually, what's even more important than the medals, more important than the accolades and all those awards that you win, is the journey. It's how you got there, how I got to where I got to today, the challenges, the obstacles that I had to face, and the ups and downs. I think those are the things that really, really endure. So my journey, for those of you who don't know, began in Lagos, Nigeria. I was born there, and actually, this is the first of my technical challenges. So here is, hopefully, you guys will be able to see it. So this is me at 6 months old. I call this my baby Buddha picture, because I'm like a tubby little Buddha with the biggest feet you've ever seen. I don't know. I mean, that medallion around my neck, I don't know what that is all about, but that was how my mum dressed me at 6 months old. And, I've got the beginnings of a baby afro and a little side parting. So that's me at 6 months old. Things were going really, really well for my family. I had an older sister. She was a year older than me. She was born with Down syndrome. But then at 15 months, when I was 15 months old, I contracted polio. I think its full name is poliomyelitis. And the way polio affects you, so first of all, polio is a waterborne illness, which you get from polluted or contaminated water. And it damages the nerves and the spinal cord, and it stops you from sending messages to certain parts of your body. And for me, it affected mainly my left leg and my left arm. So it's mainly the left side of my body. And it meant that I was unable to use my left leg, and I had limited use of my left arm. It's a lot better now, but back then it was very weak. So my parents were suddenly faced with this just incredible, challenge of having two young children with disabilities in Lagos, Nigeria, and this was in the 70s. And it became very apparent to them really quickly that it was going to be really difficult to bring up two children with disabilities in Nigeria, in Lagos, Nigeria. So they made what I think it was a super brave decision, and it was probably the most important decision in my life. And that was they decided to move from Nigeria to the UK. And they wanted to bring their family to the UK because they felt that this was going to be the best place for children with a disability to be brought up. It was the system was they felt was better, to be able to cope with people with disabilities. There was no infrastructure, no schools, no transport system. If you had a disability in Nigeria and in Lagos, definitely there wasn't. But there was a big problem, and that was the fact that my parents could only afford to bring one of us initially to the UK, and they had this horrible decision, as to choose which one of their children they were going to leave behind. And the idea was they would bring one of us to the UK and they would work over here and save up enough money to bring the other one later on. And they chose to bring me because my disability was physical. My mum said I couldn't walk and I was crawling around on the floor, and she just felt that there was no way I was going to survive. I mean, the mortality for physically disabled kids in Lagos and in Nigeria back then was the mortality rate was really high. And so it was decided that I would be the one that they would take. So they borrowed money from friends and family. They used all their savings and they left Nigeria. They left their friends, their family, their parents, and their daughter behind. And when I was 3 years old, we moved to the UK. It was, I mean, at three, I wouldn't have totally understood, the magnitude of this decision. But I definitely, when I think back, can sense the weight of what it was like. And I think for me, I think what it must have been like for my parents. But we moved to London, and we moved to East London, to an area called Plaistow. And in our first few years, we came up against our first challenge, and that was schooling. And that was because schools were separated into mainstream schools and disability schools. So if you were able-bodied, if you could walk, if you had no physical impairments, then you went to what was called a mainstream school. If you had a disability, then you had to go to a school for children with disabilities, and they weren't allowed to mix. But my parents were absolutely determined that I should go to a mainstream school, mainly because my dad said, you're going to grow up and you're going to be surrounded by able-bodied people. You're going to be in an able-bodied world, and he said, going to an able-bodied school would be the best preparation for you for the rest of your life. But my parents had to fight tooth and nail with the local education authority because they were seriously against me going to a mainstream school. And I missed about a year of schooling whilst there was a legal battle that went back and forth between my parents and the local education authority and the schools. But eventually my parents won, and it was decided that I would go to a school in Upton Park, in East London, called Creedon Primary School. Now, this was an old school that was built before the Second World War. It was 3 stories high. There was loads of stairs. There were no adaptations to it. So it was going to be a baptism of fire for me to go to this school. I was going to have to fend for myself and learn how to cope in a world that wasn't adapted for me. And I think one of the toughest things was trying to, get my head around, going to this mainstream school. And I think, my parents, one of the things that I really remember that was just poignant was my first day of school. And the reason why I remember it is because I know on that first day of school, there were a number of groups of people who were extremely worried. I know the local education authority were worried. I know the school were worried because I was going to be the first disabled kid to go to this mainstream school. And they were worried if anything happened to me that they would get sued. But I also remember on that first day of school when I woke up that my parents were also worried. I could see it in their faces. And I guess it was because they knew if things didn't go well, if things didn't work out, I would, and I got bullied or I struggled, they would be the ones who would have to pick up the pieces. Now, what I didn't explain to you is about how I was able to get around with my polio. I used to walk around on what was called calipers. So if you've ever seen the film Forrest Gump and if you remember the scene where he's running from the bullies and the bullies are saying, and his girlfriend shouts, "Run, Forrest, run!" And he's got these big metal iron rods to attach to one of his legs. I had one of those big, heavy metal iron calipers that I used to wear, and I walked with a massive limp. But I was, as I was saying, going back to my first day of school, I was just as worried as my parents, the local education authority, and the teachers, but for a completely different reason to all of them. And my worries were around the fact that the day before my first day of school, my mum dressed me up in a pink checkered flared suit. She took me to a place called Petticoat Lane Market in East London, and she bought this suit, and she felt that this was the best form of clothing for her young disabled son to wear on his first day of school. And she wasn't just satisfied with that. She combed my hair into this massive afro with a side part in the size of the Blackwall Tunnel. So I looked like this microphone head in this pink checkered suit. And I was so worried. I think it's not the exact suit, but my mum bought me a number of suits like this. But here is kind of look that I had on my first day of school with the bow tie as well. And this was the school where there was no uniform. So there I was walking to school with my dad, super nervous, thinking, what are the kids going to think of me? I already stood out like a sore thumb. I walked with a limp because of my disability. I was one of 3 black kids that were in that school. And there I was dressed in this crazy outfit. But I kind of think my mum was really clever because she by dressing me up like this, she took my mind off my physical disability and put my mind on my fashion disability. I mean, in these days, you probably would get away with that kind of outfit. It kind of looks okay. But back then, in the 70s, in a school in East London, there was no way you could go in dressed with a bow tie and a pink checkered suit. Anyway, I remember walking into the playground, feeling really nervous, thinking I'm going to get bullied. All the kids are going to call me names. And then I saw a group of kids in the corner playing football. And I was super passionate about football back then. Really passionate. It was like the big thing for me. And sport, full stop, was something that I really loved. And I remember walking over to those kids and asking if I could join in. And they took one look at me, dressed up like this, in this pink checkered suit and the bow tie, and they were like, "No way, we're not having this guy play." And I even had this my Nigerian accent. They spoke with a strong accent, and so I'm sure all of that probably made them super wary of allowing me to join in. But I was very determined, and I moaned and nagged at them all day. And by the final playtime, they gave in and they allowed me to join in. And what happened was 2 teams were picked, and they had 2 captains, and the 2 captains picked their teams. And of course, I was picked last. And they said, stick him in goal where he's out the way and he can't bother us with his crazy suit. So there I was in goal, and really thinking, at last there I here's my chance to play football and prove myself to the other kids. And within the first couple of minutes of being in goal, the best footballer in our school, a guy called Stuart Harvey, breaks loose and he's one-on-one against me. And there I am in goal. I want to paint this picture for you. Jumpers for goalposts in either side. I'm in this crazy monstrosity of a suit. I've got this big Parker coat with like a fur bit round the hood, and I've got my mittens attached to strings to my coat, and I'm moving from right to left, and Stuart Harvey breaks loose and he's one-on-one against me. And when I remember this moment, it's almost like it happens in slow motion and there's beautiful music playing, but Stuart blasts this ball. And fortunately for me, it goes to my right side, my strong side. And I managed to throw myself to one side and save what was going to be a certain goal. And I landed on the concrete, started rubbing my side because it was really hard. But at that moment, it felt like the whole playground just went silent. And suddenly I went from this fashion freak with a disability to some schoolboy sporting hero all in one moment just because of this save. I even remember one of the biggest kids in the school, a guy called Spencer Greenfield, coming up to me and saying, Addy, or whatever your name is, if anyone says anything to you about your dodgy name, about your dodgy crazy suit, about your dodgy leg, about your dodgy hairstyle, come to me and I'll sort them out because you're one of us now. And it was like a really powerful and incredible moment for me because it made me realize that even though I was different, sport was going to open doors for me. Sport was going to be my key to success. So it gave me a huge amount of confidence. School went okay for me. I mean, there were some dodgy moments, but generally it was fine because of this one sporting save. And I suppose the next big moment came for me. Excuse me. The next big moment for me was when I discovered wheelchair basketball. And I discovered wheelchair basketball when I was about 12 or 13 years old. And I discovered it by total luck, total coincidence, when I was spotted by two physiotherapists who were based at a school called Elizabeth Fry School in Canning Town. And they'd heard about me. I tried to do a sponsored walk from my school and I was in the local papers. And these physiotherapists had set up a junior wheelchair basketball team and they wanted me to play for their team, but they didn't quite know how to approach me. And it just so happened one night, they were on their way home from dropping some of their team off when they spotted me being raced through the streets in a Tesco shopping trolley. Now, the reason why I was being raced through the streets in a Tesco shopping trolley is because, as I said earlier, I couldn't walk that well on my calipers, so I couldn't keep up with all my able-bodied mates. So we thought the best way for me to get around as fast as possible was to hop in a trolley and they would just race me around and we got up to all sorts of mischief. But one day, this minibus pulls up beside me with neuron rollers on the side of it. And these two strange hippie looking people, they were the physiotherapists. One was called Owen, the other one was called Kay. They stopped, they looked out the window and they were like, "Hi, you're Addy, aren't you?" At first I was really nervous. I was like, how do they know my name? Then they said to me, "How would you like to play wheelchair basketball?" And I was like, wheelchair basketball? How does that work? And it's weird when I think back now how ignorant I was about disability sport, but I'd never heard of it. It wasn't really promoted. It wasn't on TV. So I didn't even know anything about the Paralympics. So when they told me about wheelchair basketball, I was like, how on earth is that possible? No one can play basketball in a wheelchair. And plus, I didn't want to get in a wheelchair because back then there was a massive stigma around disability and there was an even bigger stigma around getting in a wheelchair. It was almost like it gave people more of a reason to stare at me, to pick on me or to bully me. And, when you're a kid, when you're young, like 12, 11 years old, you don't want to stick out. You just want to blend in. And I thought, nah, there's no way I'm going to play wheelchair basketball. So I said to these physios, absolutely not. I don't want to be involved in this. And I told my mates, let's get out of here. But luckily for me, these physios, they came to my school, they spoke to my teachers, they spoke to my parents. And eventually, after about 4 or 5 months, they convinced me to go to the junior wheelchair basketball games at Stoke Mandeville. And I remember going to Stoke Mandeville and seeing for the first time so many different children with disabilities. I went to a mainstream school, an able-bodied school, so I'd never seen other kids with disabilities. And I didn't really see myself as having a disability. In fact, when I think back of it, I was ashamed of my disability. And then suddenly I was seeing kids who were amputees, kids with cerebral palsy, kids with all different types of spinal cord injuries, flying around in wheelchairs. And I was like, wow, I was slightly overwhelmed. But it just so happened as well on this weekend that some members of the Great Britain men's wheelchair basketball team were playing. And these guys were absolutely incredible. It was the first time that I saw top level wheelchair basketball. And these guys were in state of the art wheelchairs. I was expecting them to be in these old beat up chairs, but they were in these funky coloured chairs. The wheels were angled. They were flying up and down the court, doing wheelies. And like, I remember seeing a guy with no legs, a double amputee, just get hit by another guy and fly out of his chair, just tumble across the floor and just roll past me. And I was just like, whoa, what's going on here? And there was no histrionics. The guy got back into his chair, like fist bumped the other guy, and then they carried on playing, shooting 3-point shots, hitting reverse layups. And this was a light bulb moment for me, because suddenly I stopped seeing these guys' wheelchairs, and what I saw was elite athletes. I saw guys who were better athletes than any of my able-bodied friends. And from that moment on, I was like, I want to be like these guys. These are the people I want to have as my heroes. So I went and spoke to those physios and I asked them, how can I get myself a sports wheelchair? And they went away and they spoke to Frank Bruno, who was an up and coming boxer at the time. And he had a sports club in East London. And he raised money for me to get my first basketball chair. It arrived after about a year, and I remember it arriving. It was just this magnificent chair, which I absolutely loved. I was just like, wow, this is so cool. And I was doing wheelies in it and playing basketball in it and thinking this is my route to being a top athlete. But I was still really shy and ashamed of showing my friends this chair. So I never took it to school. But then I started getting lots of problems walking to school, especially when I started secondary school. It was a long walk, and going to classes, to different lessons, was really taking its toll on my body. And I remember speaking to my doctor about the pains that I was getting, and he knew I used a wheelchair for sport. And he said, why don't you use the wheelchair to go to school? And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And it was because deep down, I was still worried about what my friends would think. But then after a while, I had no choice, because it was causing me so much physical pain that I just had no choice but to get in the wheelchair and push to school. And I remember my first day pushing to school in the chair, feeling really nervous. And then by the afternoon playtime, I ended up making 50 quid out of renting my wheelchair out to all my friends, because all of my mates wanted to know how to do wheelies. I was really surprised. They loved the chair and they thought it was great that I was playing the sport. So I thought, well, I might as well charge them. So I charged them 2 quid a time and made money out of it. But it was also it was a powerful moment for me, because it then also made me realize that it wasn't about my disability. My friends were going to accept me for me, and they thought it was cool that I had this dream and this ambition to want to play at the top level and to compete at the Paralympics. So this inspired me to go on this journey to try and get into the Paralympic team. This is me at my at the junior championships. As I started my Paralympic dream, you can see I've got this pink wheelchair. Well, it's yellow and pink, so I kept the flamboyant style that I inherited off my mum. But as I said, I went on this journey to try and become this Paralympic athlete, and I got my first opportunity when the Barcelona Paralympics came along. I was only 18 at the time. I trained really hard to try and get in that squad, but I wasn't selected. It didn't discourage me though, because I thought I'm still young, and what I will do is I'll set my sights for the Atlanta Games. All right, and in 1996 I'll make it, and I'll still be young, and I'll go to the Atlanta Paralympics. And for that 4-year period, I trained really hard, and I went through the selection process. And what they do when they're selecting players for the national team is they get all the best players in the country, they take you to Stoke Mandeville, and eventually the team is broken down from 50 players to 12 players who are selected for the final team. So each week I went to Stoke Mandeville as the team was broken down, and it was cut from 50 to 40 to 30 to 20. And eventually it got down to the 15th player. And I was cut at the 15th player and told by the coaches, you've got some talent, but you're not quite good enough. There are better players than you out there. And I was devastated, because this was my dream. This is what I wanted to do. And I was being told that I wasn't good enough. But I thought, you know what, hold on. there's a major tournament every year. I've got another chance, another opportunity. So the following year was the European Championships. And I thought I'll definitely get in this squad. Trained really hard, went through that same selection process from 50 to 40 to 30 to 20 to eventually the team got down to the 14th player. And I was cut once again and told by the coaches that, you know what, you're not quite good enough. You're not going to make it. But you can. There's still some stuff that you've got to work on. And I was just like, what have I got to do to make it into this squad? So I trained. I thought, no worries. Next year, I'll definitely make it into the team. And I went away, trained really, really hard. And it was the World Championships in Canada. And I went through that same selection process. And I was like, definitely going to make it into this squad. Went from 50 players and it was cut down to 40 to 30 to 20. And eventually it got down to the 14th player. And I was cut at the 14th player once again. And at this point, I was really low and I was thinking, how am I going to make it into this squad? I've been training for nearly a decade and I keep getting cut. I keep getting told I'm not good enough. But I thought I'm going to give it one more chance. Because the following year was the European Championships. They come every 2 years. And this was in Madrid. And I'd been playing basketball in Spain professionally. So I felt like Madrid, Spain was like my second home. It was destiny. I was definitely going to make it into this squad. So I went away and I trained so hard, so hard. And I went through that same selection process again. The team was cut from 50 to 40 to 30 to 20 to 15 to 14 to 13. And I got cut at the 13th player, one player from making it into the team. And this was probably the lowest point in my life because I thought I've been training for nearly 12 years trying to get into the national team and not getting in, not getting selected. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, how I'm going to make it into this team. Let's get back on there. Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to make it into this team. Bear with me, just this technical thing. Move that to one side. Sorry about that. So yeah, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to make it into this squad. So I, for the first time in my life, decided to give up. I decided maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I've just I'm just delusional, thinking that I'm good enough to make it into this squad. So I went for about 4 or 5 months where I was in limbo, not really knowing what I was going to do and how I was going to make it into the team. And then I get this phone call from one of my teammates from one of the first teams I played in. His name was Amir, and he said, how would you like to come to this tournament in Cyprus? And I was like, I don't want to play basketball anymore. And he said, Ade, come to Cyprus and play basketball for all the reasons why you played it in the first place, because you love the sport. Forget about what happened in GB. And Amir moaned and nagged at me for a week. And in the end, I thought, sorry, I'll just go. So I went to this tournament and we played and we did all right. And we get to the semi-finals. And in the semi-finals of this big tournament in Cyprus, we're playing against this German team. We're not the favourite team to get into the final. And with just a few seconds to go on the clock, we're left with 2 players on the court. And we're losing by 2 points. And I'm thinking, well, fair enough. The rest of the players, including myself, had been fouled out by the referees. And I'm thinking, you know what, we're not going to win this game. But losing by 2 points, 2 against 5, that's a good result. But then with just a couple of seconds to go, one of my teammates, a guy called Jiggy, he was at the halfway line and he takes this shot from the halfway. He's got a hook shot, and he starts lining the shot up, and he throws this ball up and from the halfway line. And I remember watching this ball flying through the air. He'd been surrounded by 2 players, and Andy, who was the other player who was up the court, was surrounded by 2 players. And I watched this ball fly through the air, and I'm like, no. Yeah, and it was almost like there was a window open in the sports hall and a breeze may have blown the ball to make it change direction in the air. But it went in for 3 points, and we ended up winning by 1 point. It was one of the most incredible games in my life. And I remember us, like, at the end of it, hugging and cheering, and I had tears in my eyes. And I said to those guys, I said, thank you. I said, thank you, because they had shown me and taught me a valuable lesson, and that was to never, ever give up. And I went back to the UK inspired by that moment. And I trained harder than I've ever trained before. I trained 6 hours a day, 6 days a week. And at the end of every week, I set myself a target. If I didn't make that target, I trained on Sunday. If I made the target, I got the Sunday off. And after a year of training, super hard, I still remember one of the best days of my life in April 2000, getting a letter through the post saying, congratulations, Ade Adepitan, you have been selected for the Paralympic squad for the Sydney Games. Unbelievable moment. It's something I've been waiting for, or I've been dreaming about for about 15 years. I've been told for almost for a decade and a half that I wasn't good enough. And I finally made my dream come true. It was just unbelievable. I went to the Sydney Paralympics, played in front of massive crowds, over 20,000 people for our game against the USA, 110,000 people in the opening ceremony. Went on to captain the GB team. And if I'd given up, I would never have been able to achieve those things. So listen, I'm coming towards the end of my talk, but before I do that, I just want to show you 2 clips from some very significant moments in my life. The first clip comes from the Athens Paralympics, and this was from a big moment against the USA team. We had to win this game, and hold on, let me just get it up there. And right, let me see where it is.
It's 59 all, 21 seconds left. One more offense will take Britain through if they can only score from it. Pollock has it. He's got to work the ball. 14 seconds left. If he can get in to take an extra shot, that would be wonderful. Ade Adepitan can win this if he can get the layup in. Oh, he's fouled!
Got to be an intentional, which means Ade Adepitan will go to the line for 2, and then we'll get the ball back. That could be the play that wins us the game.
7.1 seconds left. 59 all. And Adepitan has got the throw on the line.
Yeah, this is a time that Ade Adepitan will have been dreaming about all his life. Putting himself on the line and making shots that could win the game and put GB into the semi-finals. He's a good free throw shooter, Ade. He's got good technique. Now it's all about bottle.
Yes, it is. And it's possession to Great Britain, and they will not need to take another if he gets one of these 2 in. Yes! He's got it! He's got it! Now then. He's got another, and then we've got possession, and we just hold on to the ball. We do not attempt to shoot.
They must keep moving the ball, though, when we get the ball in from the sideline. We must keep moving the ball, because the USA will be looking to foul us.
He's got the second! And that means we're 61-59 with 7 seconds to go. Adepitan's done the job so far. Now then, we've got possession, and we don't need to score.
How good must Ade Adepitan feel then, after hitting those 2 crucial shots?
Good piece of play, particularly by Ade Adepitan, to hit those 3 shots at the end, and the team coming across will say, well done, and they have beaten the world champions.
So yeah, that was from a really crucial game against the USA at the Athens Paralympics, and I dreamt all my life of taking the shots to win a game for Great Britain, and then it came in against the world champions at the Athens Paralympics. So the second clip comes from a documentary series that I did for the BBC called Beyond Boundaries. We made this in 2005. And the BBC sent 11 of us, all with different disabilities, to Central America in Nicaragua, and we had to cross from one side to the other. And this clip comes from the last couple of days of the journey. After traveling for almost a month, this is what happened. Let me just shrink that down. I'm just going to share my screen. Those of you who know what it's like with this technical stuff, here we go. That's it. Cool. Let's get that up there. So here we go. This is a documentary called Beyond Boundaries.
Attempting a journey that's never... None of them have expedition experience, but halfway round the world from the UK, they're going to cross Nicaragua from the Atlantic coast to the Pacific Ocean. They'll start on the treacherous Mosquito Coast, escorted by armed soldiers to protect them from bandits and drug traffickers. They'll make their way through impenetrable jungle, crocodile-infested rivers, and climb a live volcano to make it to their finish line, the Pacific Coast.
This is probably the biggest challenge I've had in my life, actually. I think I'm the sort of person that's always looking for challenges. You know, I always get a buzz of pushing myself to the edge and taking myself to the limit.
Ade Adepitan contracted polio when he was 2, leaving him with withered leg muscles that can't support his weight.
You know, if you grow up with a disability from such a young age, you don't really know any different.
He's one of Britain's best-known Paralympians, winning bronze in the men's basketball at the Athens Olympics.
This is going to be something that I'm going to love and hate at the same time. It's a beautiful struggle, and that's what it's all about, the beautiful struggle. And I'm going to go out there and struggle beautifully.
One of nature's most awe-inspiring sights, over 5,500 feet of active volcano. They've been anticipating this for weeks. After overcoming so many hardships, all 7 wanted to take on the volcano. In the last 100 years, it's erupted 24 times.
And again. Come on, just another foot. Okay.
I was hoping the terrain was going to change, actually, because I kept saying once you get through the bushes and you get over the top, it'll be a lot easier. I was trying to be optimistic.
That's it. Good job, Carl.
You right, guys?
Forced out of his wheelchair, Ade has no choice but to crawl his way up.
It's brought back flashbacks, it brought back memories and stuff like that. From when I used to try and walk without a wheelchair, and I used to crawl about a bit. And I had some tough times at school. People used to call me Black Monkey and stuff like that from the way I used to like call them. It just kind of hit me hard.
You get that fucking camera out of my face.
I went to a mainstream school with all able-bodied kids, and I always wanted to be like an able-bodied person, just like walk normally. And I used to never look in the mirrors because in my mind, I was able-bodied.
Sulphurous fumes billow around them. This is the volcano's steepest, hottest point.
Fucking boiling. It's really hot. It's burning my hands. Burning my legs.
It's like one of the few times that I've ever prayed, God help me, man, help me through this. It was just so much agony.
Come on, Ade. Looking up for the last time, Ade. Oh. Well done. Oh, well done. Well done, guys. Well done.
I'm very proud of you guys, man. Oh, calm, man. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, full stop. Without a doubt. Really.
Ade has crawled and pulled himself for over 5 hours, climbing almost 4,000 feet.
You know, you try not to think about the end before you get there, because that's kind of really dangerous. But we've done something special. I expected it to be difficult, but I didn't expect it to be as emotionally challenging. It's taken me by surprise as well. But I will be really pleased to get to the end of it. We'll probably get there and someone would have moved the bench. 1, 2, 3.
Wow, it's quite emotional seeing that again, both of those little clips. And I just want to finish by saying, you know, each and every one of us will at some point in our lives have our own metaphorical volcano to climb. I believe that life is about challenging yourself. It's about believing in yourself and not being afraid to stand out, not worrying about being different and not worrying about mistakes. You know, I think every successful person out there, anyone who's ever made anything of their lives, has made mistakes along the way. You know, I think mistakes are what makes us stronger. So I say to you guys, go out there, find your passion, go for your dream, go for your dreams, believe in yourselves, and never, ever give up. Thank you. I'm going to throw it over to you. If you've got any questions you'd like to ask, if there's anything you want to ask me, then send it through in the chat. And I've got a few more. I've got about 10 minutes to answer questions. Let's check, see if there's anything. Oh, wow. What have we got here? Hi, Ade, you're a legend. Love from Mox Dog. Big up, Mox Dog. I'll take that. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Nuria Casa. Do you think Paralympic sports have enough visibility nowadays? That is a really good question. And I think the real golden moment for the Paralympics came in 2012. And back in 2012, as everyone knows, in London, you know, that was probably the biggest Paralympic Games ever. I worked on the part of the team for Channel 4. I was one of the lead presenters, along with Claire Balding, but I also worked with LOCOG, the London Organising Committee for the Olympic Games. And our aim was always to try and take the Paralympics to another level. And I always said that our success, the way we know we were successful, was not just by having full stadiums at the Paralympics, not just by getting people engaged with the Paralympics for that 2 weeks that the Paralympics went on in 2012. The real test would be a year, 2 years later, to ask if we could ask people on the streets randomly to name Paralympians. And if they could name some Paralympians still after 2 or 3 years, then I knew we were successful. And I still think a lot of people know Ellie Simmons, Johnny Peacock, David Weir, Hannah Cockcroft, you know, Richard Whitehead. All of these guys are still, you know, high profile and up there. But our problem is when the Paralympics isn't on, there's a 4-year gap. And I think we're in a place even further behind women's sport. You know, football, women's football is now getting super high profile. I think they're going to have a league where it's going to be, the £20 million is being put into it, which is absolutely fantastic, because I want to see sport for everybody, you know, at all levels, and I love that, and I hope, and I still try to fight and work hard to try and push Paralympic sport into that place where we've got a regular TV slot where you can watch our leagues. And one of the messages I say to you guys is, wherever you live in the UK, wherever you live in the world, there is probably a local disability sports team near you, a local wheelchair basketball team near you. Go online and look for your local basketball team, find out when they're playing. I mean, at the moment, because of the lockdown rules, it's probably hard to find out, to watch them. But once things get back to normal, find out where they're playing and go and support your local team, because there's not enough visibility, and the only way there will be is if the next generation, if you guys embrace it. That's my 4-month-old son, by the way, who's with me making noise in the background. Chill out, Bola. One day you're going to be a star, but not yet. Daddy's what talking. Thank you, Nuria. I hope that answered your question. Megan Alpa. Wow, there's so many questions here. I'll try and get through them a little bit quicker. Megan Alpa, do you think your experience would be different if you had played a different sport, football, etc.? I mean, I guess that kind of the underlying message or question there is probably, would things have been different if I was able-bodied? I think I always had a passion for sport, and I always had the determination. I believe, you know, the personality that I have, the hard work ethic was still there, but I know the journey and the experience that I've had because of my disability, knowing that I've had to work harder and I've had to prove myself every day, and knowing that I play a sport which is a sport that not many people know about or knew about back in the days. I knew that that made me even more determined and made me work twice as hard and want to really put it out there and get the profile up there. So I definitely still think I would have been, you know, the same type of player, and I would have worked my way into professional sport somehow. But I don't think I would be the rounded character. I wouldn't be able to appreciate people from different backgrounds in the way I do and have the same kind of empathy that I have because of my disability, because I know what it's like to struggle. You know, I think when you have a disability, you are at the bottom of the rung. And when you're from an ethnic minority and you have a disability, you are right at the bottom. So you're constantly fighting and constantly being challenged every day. So maybe I would be different, but in essence, I'd still have the determination. Come on, boy, let's chill out. Daniel Foster, how did you keep picking yourself up after not getting picked? Like, how did you motivate yourself? I mean, that's it's such a key question. And I think the key is, and what's so important to realize is all of us, we all have wells of incredible willpower, but we don't often get the chance to challenge ourselves because we're scared. You know, I think sometimes we're worried that we might look stupid, or we're worried about failure. And I think I pushed myself every day, and when I was told that I wasn't going to make it, I picked myself up. There was something in me that I found, and it's a resilience that all us human beings have, but we don't really know it until we're tested. And I say to people, go out there and challenge yourselves. Challenge yourselves. You know what you want. You know what you really, really want to do, what you want to be, that you have the passion for, you know, and don't be afraid of it. And one of the reasons why I always challenge myself is because I didn't want to be that person who was saying, if only I'd gone for it, if only I'd gone for it one more time, you know, I would have made it in the squad. I think it would have absolutely killed me to sit at home to watch my mates playing in that Paralympic squad in Sydney and playing in Athens and winning those medals and not getting in there. And the final thing is, I found something that I was passionate about. Basketball was my passion, it was my love. Even now, as an old dude, I still love the sport. You know, so if you find something that you're passionate about, something that you click with, something that just fits with you, where you find your tribe, go for it, hook onto it, because just the enjoyment of playing that sport and just the enjoyment of being with that tribe and going through those experiences is way more than winning any medal, and it will drive you on and pick you up to do anything. Nicola Charlton, what advice would you give to other children or people with disabilities who are thinking about getting into sport? Go for it. I'd say go for it, and I'd say try every sport out there. Don't narrow your fields down to one sport. I actually started off as a power lifter. I was British junior powerlifting champion. I used to be able to lift 2.5 times my weight, and I broke the British record. It was nuts. But I was always into basketball, and playing basketball, my arms got longer and longer. And long arms are no good for powerlifting, because if the shorter your arms are, the less distance you've got to go to get up there. So yeah, and I was a big team sports person as well. But I went from powerlifting to swimming. I did the London Mini Marathon, road racing, and then eventually, I even played wheelchair tennis. I played wheelchair tennis on the world tour, and then finally I came down to what I really love, which was wheelchair basketball. So go for it. Find your local team. Go. There's the Willpower website. There's the British Paralympic Association website, and then there's the IPC, the International Paralympic Committee. Like, go onto all of those websites, and there will be places where you can go to find your local team, to start at grassroots. And if worst comes to the worst, find me on social media, and if I know of a team local to you, I'll try and hook you up. I'm at Ade Adepitan on Instagram, and the same on Twitter as well. Not long to go, Mike. Boller is going crazy now. TC Clark 1422. Who were your role models growing up? My parents were definitely big role models for me, because they made such a massive sacrifice, helping me, to get to where I am today. Unfortunately for me, I didn't see, like, trying to get into TV. There were no one for me to look up to. There wasn't anyone else like me who had a disability that was working in TV. So I had no one to follow, and I had to really forge my own path. And it was really scary. There was one guy, I guess, when I was really younger, called oh God, what was his name? Oh my days. Hit me with Ian Jury. That's it. Thank you, Ian Jury, who's a rock star legend. And I only found out when I was sort of a teenager that he had polio. And he had polio, and he was a rock star. He had chart hits. He had massive success with loads of music, and he was like the coolest guy ever. But he used to stumble about on the stage, or with one of his legs with his caliper on because of his polio. And I thought it was just him being rock and roll. I just thought he was out of his head, and that was it. And it was only later that I realized, oh, the guy's got a disability, he's got polio. And that had such a massive impact on me. And I think it's so important that we see people like ourselves that we can emulate as we're trying to make our way in lives. So, I think we need to get more women up there in high profile positions in sport, more disabled women, more disabled men. We need to get people from ethnic minorities. We need to get, our high profile places looking more like the UK looks like, and that's when we will really thrive. What else we got? Emily Griffiths. Gives me goosebumps, that clip. I think it might be is it the basketball clip? If it is, then yeah, it gives me goosebumps. I watched that clip of me taking that shot and thinking, I hope I make it. I hope I make it. I hope I don't miss the shot. Kako S. Who is or was the person that helped you chasing your dreams? The enabler, the two physiotherapists, who got me into wheelchair basketball. Incredible people. Frank Bruno, who raised money for my first basketball wheelchair. My parents, who brought me to the UK. My family, who helped me as well. All these people that were my support groups. And then also, when I was getting into TV, I met two guys called Luke and Jonathan, who had their own production company, and they took a chance on me, this random guy, and they made a film about me, a video diary about me called Hoop Dreams, and they realized, they said, you come across well in camera, and they pushed me to get into TV, and my agent as well, John Noel, they pushed me as well to get into my career. So there were plenty of enablers who are out there who helped me, and I think it's really important that you find those people. If you're positive, if you have a passion, then I think you will attract good people to you, because they will see how much it means to you, and they will want you to help you achieve those dreams. Hubert Obama, what are your goals for 2021? Well, this year I made, it was over the last couple of years, I made a documentary series on climate change. I want to do a lot more on that, because I'm so passionate about the climate change story and about getting more people engaged with it. We need to get in tune with our planet. We need to decarbonize, and stop living on fossil fuels. There's plenty of solutions. If you guys have had the opportunity to watch my documentary, Climate Change, Ade on the Front Line, it's still on iPlayer. The last episode was this Sunday, but there are 3 episodes. Go and watch it, and please, try and change things and move on. Right, I haven't got much longer. I'm gonna answer a couple more questions, and then I've got to go, because my little boy is kind of a bit crazy. Kako S, amazing shots. Thank you, Kako. TC Clark 142. What do you think of the modern portrayal of people with disabilities? Can you relate to Nick Vujicic and the experiences he's had? I think it's still tough for people with disabilities. I think we've still got a long way to go. I mean, the Paralympics shows us, that there's talent out there, but I think, disabled people still need opportunities to get out there. Right, one last question, and then I'm done. James Ballard, is that baby we can hear in the background? Have I found fatherhood? Oh my days. Fatherhood has been incredible. My son Bola is absolutely amazing. At the moment, I think he's just a little bit hungry, and he just wants to he wants to hang out with me. That's why. But fatherhood has been just, the most incredible experience. It's my wife got pregnant sort of early on in lockdown, and it was an amazing 9 months. Quite a tough 9 months, because it was different. I couldn't go to the screenings, and I couldn't go to the hospital, and it was even said that at one point I wasn't going to be allowed to go to the birth, but fortunately that changed. And when my son baby Bola was born in January the 4th, I'll admit it, I cried. I cried. It was just such a wonderful experience, and now I've got an opportunity, to pass on everything that I've learned, all my experiences onto him. And I think that's another reason why I'm so passionate about climate change, because I want to be able to leave this planet in a good place for my son's generation and future generations after that. But listen, I'm going to have to go now, but thank you guys so much. I've spoken for about an hour. I hope I haven't chewed your ears off. Both of you enjoyed it. And you can find me on social media. Actually, do you want to say, put Bola on? He's been making all this noise. Here he is. This is baby Bola. This is the one who's been making all the noise in the background. He's wanted to come and say hi and join in. This is the future. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for listening to my speech. Go out there, chase your dreams, challenge yourselves, and never, ever give up. Bye-bye. Say bye, Bola. Bye-bye.